David Goggins wasn't supposed to be there. Not on that track, not in that race, and certainly not 100 miles ahead of him. In fact, just a few years earlier, he was a man burdened by 300 pounds of weight, more in his spirit than his body. The idea of running a mile, let alone 100, would have sounded absurd. But life has a way of testing those least expected, and David Goggins was about to face a test that would redefine his limits, and it wasn't just about the miles. The mission was personal. Goggins had lost comrades in combat. He wanted to honor their memory, to do something impossible in their names. The answer came in the form of brutal ultramarathon, the San Diego one day. The goal? Run 100 miles within 24 hours. And he wasn't doing it for glory or a medal. It was a mission of honor. The first few miles were manageable, a steady rhythm that carried him through the initial stretch. But by mile 30, his body began to protest. Pain set in like a slow burn, but Goggins knew pain. For him, pain was an old friend, so he kept running. But then, at miles 50, things started to take a darker turn. A sharp, shooting pain in his foot. A fractured metatarsal. Every logical part of his brain screamed to stop, to take care of himself. But this wasn't just about him, so Goggins made a choice. He kept going. As the miles ticked by, his body waged war against him. His muscle began to break down. His kidney threatened to give out. And every breath felt like dragging in shred of glass. This was no longer a test of endurance, it was a battle for survival. But every time his mind whispered, quit, he thought of the children, the families who needed this money, and fallen friend who couldn't run this race. So he pushed on. And then miles 100 came. And most people would have collapsed, calling it a victory. But Goggins realized that he needed one more mile to seal the deal. So he ran that mile on a shattered foot. With his body on the brink of failure, he crossed the finish line of 101 miles in 19 hours and 6 minutes. He didn't just run, he conquered his thoughts, his minds, his body, and every limit he once believed was unbreakable. Today's video explores how our willpower actually works and how can we improve it. Willpower, as the definition suggests, is the ability to control impulses, emotions, and behaviors in order to achieve long-term goals. It's the mental strength that allows you to resist short-term temptation and distraction, enabling you to stay focused on what truly matters. Socrates, often regarded as the father of Western philosophy, believed that self-discipline was essential for living a virtuous life. He argued that without self-control, people would be driven by their basest desires, leading to chaotic and unfulfilled existence. Socrates famously stated, "No man is capable of managing his affairs if he cannot control himself." To him, self-discipline was not just about restraint, but about aligning one's action with reason and wisdom. And other philosophers like Zeno, Epicurus shared a common belief. Self-discipline and moderation are keys to fulfill life. They are all delivering the same message. Control your impulses and you will discover the key to life purpose and fulfillment. It may be the bold statement to say, but the only thing that truly separates successful people from unsuccessful ones are the ability to persist and resist. Think about Elon Musk for a second. During the early days of Tesla and SpaceX, he used to work about 120 hours a week. But wasn't that straining for him? Of course it was. But he still persisted for his goal. And Muhammad Ali once quoted, "I don't count the sit-ups, I only count when it starts hurting, because they are the one that actually counts. I'm the greatest, I said that even before I knew I was," he used to say. So now I think we are pretty much convinced that we definitely need willpower if we want to succeed, right? Many people have this misconception about willpower. They often believe that they can summon it whenever they face a challenge or need to resist temptation. However, this isn't how willpower works. Willpower is a finite resource, just like our muscles. Ego depletion is a concept that refers to the idea that self-control or willpower is a finite resource. When you exert self-control in one area, it becomes harder to maintain the same level of control in other areas. The more you use it, the weaker it gets, or at least until it has a chance to rest or recover. In the late 1990s, psychologist Roy Baumeister with his colleagues designed a study to test the limits of self-control, and it's one of the most well-known experiments in psychology. 68 undergraduate students from Case Western Reserve University were brought into the lab under the guise of taking part in a taste perception study. They were seated in a room filled with mouth-watering aroma of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. On a table in front of them were two bowls, one filled with cookies and other with raw radishes. The participants were divided into two groups. Let's call them the cookies group and the radish group. The cookies group were allowed to indulge in the delicious cookies. They can eat as many as they wanted. They didn't have to exercise any self-control. However, the radish group were asked to resist the cookies and instead eat the radishes. The radishes were not nearly as appetizing as the cookies, and participants had to exert significant self-control to avoid eating the cookies sitting right in front of them. After they were done with cookies and radishes, the researchers presented all participants with a seemingly unrelated task, solving a geometric puzzle. All students tried their best to solve the puzzle, but none were able to do it because the puzzle was designed to be unsolvable. Although participants were not told about this, the real test here was not whether they could solve the puzzle, but how long they would persist before giving up. The results were striking. The participant who had resisted the cookies, the radish group, gave up on puzzle much faster than those who had been allowed to indulge the cookies, or the cookies group. On average, the radish group persisted for only about 8 minutes before quitting, while the cookie group lasted about 19 minutes, more than twice as long. Decision fatigue is a psychological effect where one's capacity to make decisions declines after an extended period of making choices. This happens because the prefrontal cortex, the brain area responsible for high-level functions like decision-making and self-regulation, gets overwhelmed when confronted with too many options. As a result of this cognitive overload, individuals may experience impaired decision-making, diminished self-control, and mental exhaustion. So now we know our willpower works like a muscle. Just as you can't build physical strength by lifting weights for 20 hours straight for one time, you can't develop strong willpower by relying on it occasionally. So it's kind of stupid of us to say things like, I will hit the gym and start dieting starting this new year. It's not good to say that. Moreover, it's impractical. Strengthening willpower involves enhancing the capacity of prefrontal cortex. So let's understand a little bit about the prefrontal cortex. This part of our brain, right here inside your forehead, is crucial for high-order cognitive functions like planning, decision-making, working memory, and controlling attention. If our prefrontal cortex is weaker, then of course we are not disciplined, or I should say, we can't be disciplined. These are the things that affect our prefrontal cortex temporarily. High cognitive demands. Our prefrontal cortex is heavily involved in tasks that require working memory, focus, and complex decision-making. Continuous engagement in this task can lead to cognitive overload, which taxes the prefrontal cortex and causes mental fatigue. Sustained attention. Extended period of intense focus like studying or tackling a difficult task demand a lot of energy, and our brain, especially the prefrontal cortex, depends heavily on glucose as its main fuel. The neuron in prefrontal cortex burn glucose quickly during these activities, and as the glucose level drops, you start to feel mentally fatigued. Neurotransmitter depletion. Neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine are crucial for maintaining focus and motivation. Over time, high cognitive demands can deplete these neurotransmitters, resulting in decline in the prefrontal cortex ability to sustain attention and motivation. Also, sleep deprivation and stress significantly affect the prefrontal cortex ability to function properly. That's why it's hard to maintain our emotions and focus when we are sleep deprived. Even so, most of the time we are not at our full potential. So let's first discuss how we can use our willpower at full potential. Plan the day before. When you plan your day the night before, you eliminate the need to make decisions first thing in the morning. When your mind is still waking up, this helps conserve mental energy for more important decisions later in the day, and with preset plan, you're less likely to be sidetracked by distraction. And prioritizing 7 to 8 hours sleep each night is essential for keeping your willpower sharp, as it gives your brain the downtime it needs to reset and operate at its best. Okay, now let's discuss how to strengthen the capacity of our willpower. Do something you don't feel like doing. This has to be the best way to train our willpower. Since willpower is like a muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. By forcing yourself to do things you don't like, you're exercising self-discipline, which enhances your ability to control impulses and make decisions that align with your long-term goals. So, make it a point to do one thing or two every day that you really dislike doing, just for the sake of breaking out of comfort zone. And over time, you will get used to that uncomfortable feeling. There are some ways to do it. Practice delayed gratification. Study shows that those who can pass up immediate rewards for a bigger payoff later often end up in a better life outcomes. The classic marshmallow test illustrated this well. Kids who could resist eating a marshmallow immediately in the exchange for a larger rewards later usually did better in many areas of the adult's life. It's not merely about resisting temptation, it's about developing the mental discipline. Physical exercise. Activities like running, swimming, and cycling increase the blood flow to the brain, promote neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons, and enhance the connectivity of the prefrontal cortex. And resistance exercise, such as weightlifting, also contribute to brain health by promoting the release of growth factors that support the survival of neurons and the formation of new neural connections. And we should engage ourselves in activities that require critical thinking, problem solving, and decision making. This includes playing strategy-based games like chess, solving puzzles, or learning new skills. These activities stimulate the prefrontal cortex and promote neuroplasticity, leading to long-term improvements in cognitive function. Continuously learning new information, whether through formal education, self-study, or practical experience, keeps the prefrontal cortex engaged. For conclusion, willpower is more like a muscle. You can strengthen it with the right kind of practice. The more strategically you use it, the tougher it gets. By understanding what influence our self-control, like setting clear goals, keeping stress in check, and balancing our lives, we can build up a willpower reserve that doesn't just help us say no to short-term distraction, but also drives us towards the bigger long-term goals. Thank you for watching.